Hi everybody, welcome to Tallow Homestead. My name is Carrie and thank you for joining me today. I have some seedlings that are ready to be transplanted, and I'd also like to start planning my summer flower garden, so I thought I'd bring you along for those two projects today. Okay, before we start transplanting these seedlings into larger containers, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the actual makeup of this seedling. So as we plant the seeds and germination occurs, the first thing that appears are your seed leaves, which would be these two little leaves right here. And the purpose of these seed leaves is that they are actually part of the embryo of the plant that stores the food. And until these true leaves are established, this is what helps feed the seedling. Once the seed leaves have emerged and the plant continues to grow, the true leaves appear. And the true leaves emerge as pairs. So you can see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs of true leaves on this seedling. And the reason why you're going to want to know that is when you are either transplanting your seedlings or thinning out your seedlings, you want to make sure you have at least 2 to 4 pairs of true leaves on your seedling. Now, the one good thing about once the true leaves appear is they then start to feed the plant through photosynthesis. So what that means is water and nutrients through the sun or artificial light from a grow light will take place through the leaves, and that will help feed the plant. So this is a basil seedling, and you'll notice that the true leaves are actually a miniature version of the full leaf of the plant. I'm just going to show you a cilantro now. So this is a cilantro, and you can see the seed leaves on the bottom. There's one there and one there. And then these stalks here are our true leaves. And as you can see, these are mini versions of cilantro. So I have quite a few seedlings today that I would like to transplant. I'm going to do one container full of cilantro. Another one will be full of basil. We have 2 types of basil. Another one will be with parsley. And then the 4th one will be a combination of thyme and rosemary. And so typically, you're not going to plant your plants this close together, but for myself, because I know this is going to be an indoor herb garden, I am going to plant them quite tight together. Now you'll notice when I'm transplanting here, I'm not burying my seed leaves. I'm going to leave that dirt in the pot for now, but I will probably use it to help fill up the container. And all I simply do is make a little hole where I want it to go. I gently dig out the plant, try to not disturb the roots, and see how long the root system is on this. And get that planted, keeping the seed leaves above the dirt. I know these look pretty flimsy right now, but once they've established their roots again, they will start to perk up a little bit. And I will be, as I mentioned, fertilizing these plants today. Once your seedlings have established their true leaves, like these have, then you can start a regular fertilization. I don't give a full fertilization. When the plants are young like this, I put probably half the amount that I would normally put into a full-grown seedling, just because that's an awful lot to take in at once. So we're transplanting, and then we're fertilizing. That's a lot of pressure to put on the plant. And once I have finished transplanting all of these seedlings, I am going to keep them under my grow lights until they are a little bit more established. And then I have a couple of windowsills that are south facing downstairs in my basement. I've got a lovely window ledge where I can put these. I can also put them upstairs in my kitchen on my counter. and just make use of these fresh herbs while I'm cooking. Okay, more here. You can tell which herb is my favorite because there's so many of them. Cilantro is hands down my favorite. Andrew does not care for it that much. It's funny, it's one of those herbs that you either love or hate. There's really no in between. So I try when I'm, for example, making salsa. What I will do is I will make the salsa, but then I will not put the cilantro in. I'll kind of prepare it for the side, and then I'll just add that in on mine, which is a great way to use your herbs. Okay. So I do realize that's a lot of herbs in this one container, but once these are established, I will be using them a great deal. Okay, and one final cilantro. It's funny how the root systems are very different for each plant. And I don't know if you can see that there, but the the seed leaves have already started to die on this particular seedling. And that's okay. Because as I did mention, they will eventually dry up and fall off. Okay, so I know that doesn't look the greatest right now, but once I have watered these in and put them back under the lights, it may take a day or two, but they will definitely perk back up again. The next thing I'm going to transplant will be basil. I have some sweet basil and some spicy basil. And one of the reasons I really like to start herb gardens in the winter is we cook with a lot of fresh herbs. And it's just so much nicer if you can have a little herb garden yourself in the winter than always going to the grocery store and buying, whether you buy the herbs that are already packaged. You can actually purchase full-blown plants of herbs. I prefer to grow my own herbs if possible. And I'm very fortunate that I do have the grow lights and the racks in my basement, so I'm able to grow my own herbs. You'll notice here that my basil, my sweet basil, I've got two different types of basil. You can notice the differences on the leaves, and that's totally okay. But I tell you, the smell right about now is delicious. Now look at the difference of the roots, how much this system here compared to the cilantro has spread out. And again, I'm being very careful not to bury my seed leaves. So there's some sweet basil. And now we're going to do some spicy basil. Spicy basil is absolutely delicious. It's great with chicken. If you're making a salad, it's nice just to cut up into really tiny pieces and put that into your salad. It has a great flavor. If you're marinating chicken or pork, it's also a great addition to a marinade. You can't go wrong with spicy basil. Okay, and one final one. The seedling itself is doing great. It's quite a bit larger. Okay, so there's the basil all transplanted. Okay, I think the next thing we'll transplant will be our parsley. These seedlings aren't as large as the others, and I probably could wait a little longer to transplant them, but I figured while I've got everything out today, I've got the dirt out and I'm going to be making a mess, I might as well do it all at the same time. And because I am growing in a much more controlled environment in the house and under the grow lights, it's quite warm downstairs. I do have the lights. I also have a fan on, which helps to imitate wind. These seedlings won't have any problem growing larger. That's something you want to maybe think of if you're going to be putting in seedlings or growing seedlings in your house, wherever you are going to be growing them. It's important to make sure that you have all of the elements that they require to grow. So you'll need, of course, you'll need your water, you'll need your light, In this case, it will be grow lights, and you will also need a fan once they have started to germinate. Now you'll notice this just has its seed leaves. It doesn't have its true leaves yet. So I'm taking a chance with that one, but I think that once I've established the planting in here and we've put a little bit of, I will make sure that when I water, I don't put the fertilized water around too much around this plant. That was the curly parsley. Now we're going to try some regular. Careful with that. I got my seed leaves a little low there. See that parsley is very close to, looks very close to cilantro. I don't label my seedlings once they've reached this size. And if there's actually ever a question of whether it's cilantro or parsley, all you need to do is just touch your leaves and smell your fingers, and it's very evident what is parsley and what is cilantro, because cilantro has quite a strong scent. Okay. There's our parsley. One final container. Now these final seedlings aren't the largest, but as I said, I'm currently making a dirty spot here in the basement. I'll just continue and transplant these. I think they'll be just fine. So this is, I'm starting with the thyme. It is quite small, but as I said, I think we'll be just fine. And once you start growing herbs on your own like this, and you have them available in the house, it's just, you don't even reach for your dried herbs anymore when you're cooking. It's just such a great addition to when you're cooking, such a fresh flavor. All right, I'm going to leave a little bit more space for the rosemary because they do tend to get quite a bit larger. I do already have a couple of rosemary plants in the house that I am actually using right now while I'm cooking. So it's kind of nice to have different stages, because if you use too much, then you know that you have another plant readily available to you. Okay, and the final transplant. Oh, it smells delicious. It's amazing. This tiny little piece of seedling here, when you touch the leaves and smell your fingers, the smell is so strong. And we'll now water all of these seedlings in gently. And I have added my Miracle-Gro fertilizer to the water, a reduced amount though. I'm not giving it a full application of fertilizer. And now that I have started with the fertilization, I will continue with that on a weekly basis. I don't have the fan turned on right now because when I'm videoing, it is a little bit loud. So once I am finished, I will turn that back on. And it does face the grow racks. So what it basically does is it just imitates wind. And the plants need that because it helps them strengthen with a little bit of wind. Finally, this cilantro. Oops. There is still a considerable amount of water in this container, so what I will do is I will use that on my houseplants. I do fertilize them on a weekly basis as well. Make sure everything has a good drink, because as I mentioned, I didn't water them this morning. I typically water every morning. When I get up, I come down and turn on my lights and I water, but I didn't this morning because I knew I was going to be transplanting. Okay. It's placed under the lights. Okay, before we start planting the flowers, I just wanted to give you a quick update on where we are with our vegetable seeds. So this is the layout of the garden. I showed you that in the past video on what how I map out our vegetable garden. So this is the actual garden itself, and these numbers correspond to the different garden beds. As I receive my seed packages, what I do is I'll check off here on my list to make sure that I've included everything. So here is for my red peppers. So red peppers is number 4. So I've given that a check off. I look at the package and it tells me that to start them inside, I need to start them 8 weeks prior to transplanting. So remember when I did tell you that my seeds last year, I made a note that they didn't grow as quickly as I wanted to, so I'm going to increase it by 2 weeks. So I'm going to start all my seedlings from 10 weeks. So I remember I mapped back from an actual planting day, the different weeks to show where we were at. And so week 10 is March 21st. So I've written on here my peppers and in brackets how many. And I know how many because here at number 4 are where my red peppers are going to be. So I'm going to be planting 4 in there, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to start 8 seedlings because they're not all going to 100% germinate. And if I do have extras, as I mentioned, I do give them to my family and friends. So I've gone through, and for all of my seed packages I received, I have checked them off to make sure that I have received them. Those that do not have a check mark, like my shishito peppers, I haven't received those yet. That was from a different seed company, and I've written them down here on my calendar sheets as to when I should be planting them. And for those that are direct sow, I just put a DS beside them. So for example, my carrots and my lettuce, my green beans, my beets and my radish, I'm not going to be starting indoors. They're going to be directly seeded into the garden after we have received our last frost. So we're going to get started planning out what our flower gardens are going to look like this summer. If you remember during the frozen garden tour I took you on, out front of the house, I have 5 garden beds that line the driveway. I also have a large flower bed along the front of the house. It consists of probably half of perennials, but I do like to fill that up with annuals. And in the backyard, I have 2 beds that are directly behind the house, and we refer to these as Andrew's Gardens. And then near the back by the forest edge, I have 2 beds there, and I have 2 little ones in front of the garden shed. So typically what I like to do is fill those up with annuals. I also like to plant some annuals in my vegetable patches companion plants. The first year we did that, I put a lot of nasturtium and a lot of marigold in amongst the tomatoes, and they're a really good companion plant. However, I did find that both of those took over, and they just they started to really clog up around the tomato plants. So this year what I plan to do is I will do with the companion planting, but I will plant them in pots, and I will place them either outside the garden bed or in the corner of a bed that I can move, just so that they're not taking over. And you'll notice here that I did the same thing with the vegetables, is my beds are 3 by 6. So just to give me an idea of how many flowers I will need when I start planting. I'm pretty good about jamming flowers in together. I don't necessarily follow the 1-foot rule with flowers as I do with the vegetables. I'm very generous with my flowers. So the steps I take with my flowers, because I know I have 0 control when it comes to looking at seeds. Some people it's shoes, some people it's purses or clothes. Me, it's seeds and flowers. So I know my limitations. So what I do is I sit and I plan out first what I'd like to do in my garden. So for the front, this will be, here's the house and this is our driveway. So I've decided in this bed I would like dahlias, this bed snapdragons, this bed gomphrena, straw flower, and zinnias. And then I'm at the end of the driveway. Last year I had something called bunny tail grass. It's actually quite cute. I think I might grow that again and put it in the middle of these buckets. But I did really like some lemon coral sedum that I put as a kind of a filler around the bottom of these buckets here. And I think I wouldn't mind getting some more of that. I'm not going to plant that from seed. I will wait and go to the garden centers for that. And then at the back of the house, these beds currently, so these are the beds that are closest to the house, and they currently have lilies and lupins in them. And in these two beds, which are, as I mentioned, outlining the forest, we have eryngium, echinacea, dianthus, and bee balm. These I consider my kind of wild butterfly gardens. And at either side, I should have marked this, so either side of these gardens here, I have a wild rose that I transplanted from the front garden, and I split it and put it out in the backyard. And then these two beds here, these are on either side of my shed at the front, and they have lavender in them. So now that I kind of have an idea as to what I want to plant, so how I kind of handle this without going crazy and ordering half of the seed catalog is I'll start by going through my seeds that I currently have. And I do have a lot of seeds. I want to use up as much as I can, even though, you know, typically you should use the seeds the same year you plant them, but I have some seeds in here from 2 to 3 years. I have had some success with germination, but I would like to just kind of clear out what I have before I order any more. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to start going through my seed packets here. Now, even though I have written down these specific plants here that I want to plant, I am going to be planting others because I do have other areas in the gardens that I want to fill out. As I mentioned, in my front garden, I do have other spots that I can plant these around the house. I have some deck boxes out on the back deck as well as on the top deck, other small garden spots, and I just fill in pots in the yard. So I do look through some of these seeds and then just make the decision on that. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go through, I'm going to look at all my different seeds, and I'm going to then write down not necessarily what I'm going to plant, but the ones that I'm going to plant, I'm going to pull out and put to one side so that I can start marking on my calendar like I have for the vegetables when these need to be planted, so that I am aware of when I need to start these seeds. So I will be doing that. So I'll pull the ones out that I know that I will use, and the ones that I need to order, I'm going to start making note of on this paper here. All right, we're going to start going through the seeds and decide what we're going to plant and what I need to order. So I do have aster, some pale pink, some pastel mix, they're lovely, and some gala lavender. I am going to put those aside as ones I'm going to plant. Bee balm, arboretia, and butterfly flower. I don't think I need any of those. Calendula. I do have a bunch of calendula that I gathered seeds from. We'll look at those shortly. I'm going to put some of those aside. I'm going to use those as a companion plant. Cupid's dart. I'm not going to plant any of those this year. As I go through these, and if I determine that these are part of the ones that we've mapped out in the garden here, I will start crossing them off to make sure we've captured everything. These Shasta daisies are a perennial. Excuse me. I'm going to plant some of these because I'm going to put some of these up on my hill. These daisies. Oh my God. Oh yes, plenty of daisies. I'm going to do the same with the daisies. Now dahlia. In the garden here, my first garden bed, I have dahlia. Even though I've broken them down to 3 by 6, I typically do 4 rows. So I have some dahlia cactus, some dahlia unwinds, but I also know that I have ordered another package of dahlia from another company, but I'm going to put dahlia down here because I want to get a 4th kind. And eucalyptus. I planted some of those last year. They came up very well. Still have a few more seeds, so I'm going to plant some more of those as well. So dahlias, we've looked after dahlias. Gomphrena, that's going to take over one of the full beds out front. So I have pastel. but I've only got one kind, so I'm gonna need to put down gomphrena. And I'm gonna need 3 different kinds. The dahlia, I need 1 different kind. Here's the bunny tails. Talked about that. That is actually 10 to 12 weeks before the last frost. But as you can see, they're quite cute. I'll put those aside to plant. Forget-me-nots. I'm not gonna put any of those in this year. Lavender. I always plant more lavender, but these are empty. So I'm gonna just mark lavender. Sometimes I will just keep the packages that I have just so that I know what are my favorites. Lupin, definitely gonna plant those. These are a perennial, they're beautiful. And Lavatera, I'm gonna plant some of those as well because they'll go great in the hill behind the house. All of my nasturtium. I've only got 1 left actually this year, but I'm not gonna plant any of that yet. I'm gonna plant that closer to May, as I'm gonna be putting those in the pots for companion plants. Xeranthemum, I'm out of those. So these are some more straw flowers. And I am going to be planting straw flowers out front. So I've got quite a good selection of straw flower. So I'm gonna pull all of those aside and then I'll decide which ones I want to do. I'm gonna do, well, I might do more than, in the garden itself, I'll do 4. But I can plant others and they can go into other parts of the garden. Sunflower, I'm not sure I'm gonna do sunflowers this year. I may change my mind. We have a little spot along the side of our property that I'll sometimes throw handfuls of seeds in there just to have a nice little wild garden. Zinnias. Zinnias are probably one of my favorite flowers. I do have plenty of zinnia seeds here. I have enough there that I can have enough for my my front garden bed. And I have 2 more. I've got some crazy names. Okay. I have 2 different types of snapdragons here. I'm going to look into different snapdragons this year. These were Potomac ones and they were very tall. I would prefer to have ones that are shorter. So I'm going to mark over here, snapdragon. I'm going to say 4 because I like to have 4 different kinds. And I'll cross off the garden. Actually here, and I need to cross off gomphrena as well because I do have that here on my list. So all of the front garden, I've made sure that I've either got seeds pulled aside or on my list to order. Now for the back. The bunny-tail grass, I did pull that aside. And that's pretty much it, except for some of my seeds that I pulled from the garden itself. So I have some status. I might actually throw some seeds in, fill up some of the spots in the backyard. Some scabiosa. I wasn't a big fan of the scabiosa, but I do have quite a big container here of seeds I've collected. So I have this big container of calendula. It looks huge, but it's actually the heads of the calendula. I just threw them all in here. So those I will definitely plant. And marigold. So again, I will definitely plant both of these because they are great companion plants for the garden. What else have we got? Some Lavatera. Those were seeds from last year. Plant those. Nigella. Not sure. Some more lupin. Actually, I'll use these first before I use the ones in my package. Some small ornamental peppers. Not sure. Watermelon from 2024. Maybe I'll try a couple of those. My pumpkins. I'm not going to worry about my pumpkins quite yet because I'm going to plant those directly outside. So I've got white pumpkins, I have stacking pumpkins, some hibiscus. I am going to try that again. I have 2 beautiful hibiscus plants out the side of my house. I've tried to propagate them last year and I wasn't successful, but I'm going to try planting from seed and see how I make out. Some orange pumpkin. So again, I'll wait for the closer to the planting time before I do anything with those. All right, so I have a pretty good idea now. Don't need to order too much. This is why I do this, because I could look through these seed catalogs and I would basically fill up 2 pages of the order sheet. I would easily fill up 2 of them, and I don't need them. The only thing is I'm looking on this sheet from the backyard. Osteospermum, we did speak about putting some of those. They're like a daisy and they're just beautiful, but you can get them in like purpley colors. So I'm going to put those down because Andrew did mention that he wanted some of those in his garden. So for all of these other ones here that you can see, I've got quite a large amount of seeds that I've put aside here to plant. So those will fill up some of these other garden beds here. We have our garden beds out front with very specific flowers that I wanted to plant. And then some of these other, I've got the ones at the back, but all along the side of the back of the house, the naturalized garden, I can throw in a lot of these other seeds in there too, or the seedlings once they have grown. Okay, I'm going to start looking through the catalog and look at adding some of the different seeds that we need. I need to get some Cosmos, and I really like these ones here, the Cosmo red and white. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down the number so that when I go online, I know what I'm looking for. The next thing we're going to look for are dahlias. Okay. And I can see we have the Showplace mix, which is beautiful. I think I'm going to choose these. Get that number. Okay, the next thing we need are some gomphrenas. I'm not seeing the gomphrenas. Okay. Do have some lavender. You can see we have the purple and the white. So I will make sure I get both of those listed. Need some snapdragons. Oh, here's some osteospermum right here. Aren't these beautiful? I'm gonna get this mix right here, the Asti mix. I might get this one too, actually. This Aquila Grand Canyon mix, they're beautiful. And we need some snapdragons. There we go, here's some snapdragons. I don't really see any that I can live without here. Might have to go and look into another catalog and see if I can find something. So I've got some dahlias, some lavender, some osteospermum, some cosmos. I'm gonna look at another catalog for gomphrenas and snapdragon. Okay, in my Johnny's catalog, I was able to find some gomphrenas. I'm gonna pick 4 different kinds of gomphrenas. Have a nice mix here. And now I need some snapdragons. Here we go. I think I might try some of this Madam Butterfly mix. And you can see all of the different color blends. I'm going to choose 4 different ones from this butterfly series, and that should round out the rest of my seeds that I need. So I have all the information I need from both catalogs, so I can go online and order the seeds that I'm looking for. And then once I've received all of my seeds, I'm going to go through the same process that I did for my vegetables. I'll look at my calendar, and based on how many weeks out I need to start the seedlings, I'll mark them into the calendar so that I know when to get everything started inside. Looking forward to that. So thank you for going along on this journey with me today. It's very exciting. Not only did I get my fingernails dirty for a little bit, which made me happy, but I was able to look through some seed catalogs, and just looking at flowers and seeds always makes me happy. It's something I really enjoy, is looking through seed catalogs, looking at different flowers and herbs and vegetables. And I controlled myself this time. I barely ordered anything. I wanted to make use of what I had. So let's not kid ourselves. I'm sure there will be a few more times I go online, or I'm sure once the garden centers open, I will be in there buying flowers that I don't need, but who can never have enough flowers, right? So thank you so much for joining me today. I am glad that you took the time to spend some time with me. Thanks again for watching. I hope you're doing well, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.